It's good because it helps you like process why you do certain things and stuff, like why they come about and stuff. Not why, just like.
Yeah, so why did you start Fridge?
Why not? It's just like a lot of people that I live with, my friends, people's work I admire so much. I just felt that they weren't shown in the right. They just weren't being shown at all. So I was just like, why not just put up something or put something together that gives the people's work you like, your friends, space to show. It's like, why not do it instead of waiting for some sort of like gallery to come pick you up? Just do it yourself, kind of thing. It's like, why do I need some other person's authority in order to put things together? You know, it's easily done when you see people making great work. I think the work does the curate itself because we're surrounded by so many great artists, I think.
What role are you taking as curator, if any?
Sorry?
Are you taking a role as curator apart from bringing the people together?
I guess, I mean, I think the word curator can be a bit inflated sometimes, but it's just utilizing their language and the way they see the world and whatever materials they use and putting it together.
Who's they?
They is friends, the artists I live with, and other people I know who I think make really great work.
Not they as in the art world, using their word curator in the first place. Because what does the word curator mean to you?
What does it mean to me? The ability to ability to bring different mediums, different textures of people's work, different languages, and putting it together in one space. Because I think it's like a DJ playing music. I think a curator, but it's using other people's visual language and putting it together and creating a visual playlist in a way.
As a DJ would.
As a DJ would, yeah.
They're not using their own tunes.
Exactly. Yeah. In a sense, and for me, it's because I just get excited about other people's work, plain and simple, and I'm just like, that would work well together. Let's see what happens when you put, this artist who's doing something in video against this artist who's working in a more crafty, traditional way, and how does those two elements work together in the same space, and how do those two artists? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Like, for me, it's just exciting to see all those different elements put together on the same roof.
Because how many fridges have there been?
There's been 2 so far.
One in the Hackney Baths.
One in Hackney Baths. The first one was on Hackney Road in an office space, which we converted. We did like a kind of like a dress rehearsal hang the week before. Took everything down, put the office back into place. Then 4 hours before the show, we hung it again. As soon as the office was done for work around, I don't know, 3:30 or something, we rehung all the work, then put the show on for a night.
Wow.
Which was exciting as well, but it was a lot of work. But yeah, we made it work anyway. Then the second one was at the old baths. We had a bit more time. It was a cleared space. It was it was much nicer experience in terms of hanging and not being too stressed and stuff. But yeah, it's just literally putting my ears on the ground and just finding people and organisations who are willing to let us use their space, whether for one night, whether for 2, whether for 3, however.
And is this the first show because you showed yourself in the other 2?
Yeah.
And this is the first one you aren't showing in?
Yes.
Or are you showing something?
I'm not showing in this one.
And why is that?
Because I just wanted to focus more on the artists in the show. Because I think when I have to think about my own work, it kind of throws me off about... Because sometimes I think my work didn't work in some of the shows, personally. Because I just felt I needed to put my work in there because it was a show on. I was just like, oh, I've got to do it. But
yeah. And
sometimes it's best not to have yourself in it and just focus on putting on a good show and focusing on the artists you're putting together and stuff. And plus, for me, it's easier to do that than to have myself in it. I don't know.
But then I thought there was something nice about you showing in the show, because it kind of broke the role of the kind of classic role of the curator, because you were a bit like the player manager, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
It's like you've got the manager and the player, but when the players, and obviously they're on two sides of the fence, because there is a sort of separation between curator and artist, because curators generally are much more of the established art world, and artists are just from a different stream. And you broke that format by, you know, because it's a bit like art critics. It's like, you know, there's always a critics. The criticism back is just like, well, what could you do? Yeah. And obviously, I mean, I don't think I support that completely, because I think there is a job of being a critic and something that we know. But yeah, I just thought, you know, it's like lead by example, and yeah, I mean, yeah. How's that changed? How has it changed the feeling of the show for you that you're not involved in it? In there with the pack.
I know I see what you're saying, but at the same time, because I'm a maker myself, and predominantly, and I'm interested purely in the work of what the artist is doing, I think I still feel part of it, even though I'm not showing in there. It is a bit weird not being in it, I guess, but at the same simultaneously, I don't feel like I'm separate from the artist, because I feel an artist curating artist shows, I think there's a lot more looking and observing in the artist's work, because when I speak to other curators, you can tell they have like a regimented system of like, oh, this artist is making this trendy objects right now. That's what most curators like predicate their own, like, you know, shows on, like who's hot right now, what color schemes being put together in the painting works right now. Yeah. And it's all, oh, this person's doing like this kind of, you know, lucid figurative painting, which is quite, I don't know, but you know what I mean. So I and I just try to, like, I'm very cautious about having not picking artists who are trending in a way, but more artists who I think who are deeply entrenched in their practice and really, really thinking on different bandwidths, especially different bandwidths, not in terms of higher or lower, but just really delving into what the fuck they're doing, in a sense.
I suppose a lot of curators would pick, or they would pick specific work to show together, whereas you've picked specific artists to show together. Yeah. Because your mind is more in the space of the artist. Yeah, exactly. And is it a fuck you to the establishment to do it?
No, not at all. I just think I just want to do it myself. Because I just feel, because I walk into shows and I'm just like, that's such a shame. This could be done so much better, or this is lacking here, or something's a bit, you know, over embellished, and you just see some work, you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I've seen this 1,000 times, like, bore me later. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, put people who you never think to put together, in a sense. It's not like a fuck you to the system. I just think, no, everybody, because we're so based on like a rating system, people go via like other people's opinions and not think for themselves. So people like to be fed information all the time. You should think this way, or you should like this artist, or blah blah blah. Yeah. And people aren't willing to. So I want to kind of remove that sort of, I don't know, like kind of people preempting too much of what the show is about. Because people would ask me like, what's the show about? I'm like, I don't really want to say too much, because I want people to come and see the work with fresh eyes and see the conversation between the different artists in a space as well. And not be like, oh, it should be about this. I know it's important for some movements and stuff, obviously, but it's not what I would want to.
And why is it called Fridge?
Fridge was coined over a conversation by me and a friend, and we were thinking of just names for, I don't know, of just like a company we wanted to run, and he came up with the name. He said Fridge. I was just like, what? Then he wanted to use, he said Fridge because it was a way of, it's the first place a child's drawing is put on the on the
fridge door,
the fridge door, yeah. And I at the same time I was just like, that's quite funny because there's a big thing called freeze, so we should call it fridge because it's kind of like a part, like a spoof on that. So I was just like, let's call it fridge, and that's how it was born.
And freeze is obviously mega establishment.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not a fuck you to that.
I mean, yeah, it is kind of like a major fuck you to that. No, but people would think it's a fuck you.
But it's
to
a
that.
tongue-in-cheek.
It's a tongue-in-cheek, yeah, exactly.
No, I know it's not an aggression. It's we're just doing it our way and making it more domestic.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's how it was born. And I like the look of the name. It rolls off the tongue. It's one syllable. It's nice.
And what? Who are some of the artists that are involved in the show?
We have Ben Dawson, Ian.
Maybe say who they are and what their kind of practice is, as far as you know. Well, what you've asked them to show. I mean.
Okay. We have Ben. Ben's. My God, I'm gonna get this so wrong. He renders his own universe on computer. It's like video animated worlds, which I find really interesting because it's just breaking all the rules of what another. It's just a different world entirely. It's just alien. It's the way it's rendered. It's really beautiful. It's really well done.
Was he shown in the Bath show?
No, he wasn't actually. No.
Oh.
This is a new one.
Is it similar-ish to that CGI video?
It is similar to the CGI video, and I haven't watched the full rendering video of it. But what he's showing is a screenshot, but highly printed on nice fabric, which will be hung on the ceiling, so it feels like another dimension being split in the roof, kind of thing. There's yourself, who I think makes really great work. There's a mixture of tongue-in-cheek posters, which are beautifully designed, and the way you've utilised the typeface and the colour. And it's not just posters, it's the way you've utilised the whole word, the spacing, the line.
Yeah.
It's still very visually, it's still very painterly the way it's composed. In a way. And I really like that transition in the work as well. And were you thinking of showing some sculptures as well? It was just that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
We'll see if we got something to put them on.
Who else is showing? We have Benedikte, who works in multiple mediums. She paints, she paints. She's a photographer. She straddles between both collaging and mixing both of them together, which I find really interesting as well. And just an artist who just uses colour and textures and use that as a guideline in order to create a composition, which I think is a nice balance to the mix, to everybody's work, to your work, which is a bit more direct but still amazingly beautiful, but hers is a lot more sensorial in terms of the way she goes about making it, in that sense. And we have Ian, who's also like a CGI-esque video artist. I don't know what he's showing, but he showed me snippets. But I don't know. But it looks very good. Who else is showing? We have Cecily, who's got some really beautiful crafted clay pots, which have been. I think the clay has been sourced from home. I can't quite remember where the clay has been sourced, but it's locally sourced clay, which is utilised to make some of her ceramics and stuff, which is really, really beautiful, which I'm excited to see. Diogo is Diogo's work is kind of it has this sort of immediacy to like his life and stuff, and it's kind of it's on autopilot not being in the sense of like being passive, but more so very constant and aware of his interaction with his reality and what he's digesting. So his stitching, his drawings are very quick.
Yeah.
And it's reflecting everything he picks up. So I really admired that sort of pace and that sort of tension in his work, or his way of observing. It's always moving. It's very visceral. Yeah. Who else is in there? I should have written this down, Conrad.
Daisy. She's doing a fridge.
She's doing a fridge, yeah. And a fully carpeted fridge, which is amazing. I'm really excited to see it. And her work's amazing. And I think her work's very autobiographical as well. And I just think, as well, just like the rate she makes it, how beautiful they're just really well crafted objects.
Yeah.
And then, and who else is in there? I think that might be it.
I think that's it.
I hate if I miss someone, fuck.
Well, if you did, we'll slip it in.
What else is there? But yeah, I just thought everybody would be really great to have together. And the thing is, I'm always thinking like 2 shows ahead, like who I'm gonna have next together. It's always like, and depending on the space, it depends like how I pick people. The bigger the space, the more we can push things as well. So for now I'm just using this as like a springboard to hopefully get a bigger space for a longer time duration.
More than a night,
ideally, and fully sponsored, fingers crossed. Because prior to lockdown, I was actually going to do the fridge in Stour, because it was part of the calendar, but lockdown happened, that went to shit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And the last show was on the other side of the pandemic.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah. And you haven't...
Literally just before the pandemic.
And you haven't... The reason that there's been a big gap between them is because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
You didn't fancy trying to do one during...
Yeah, exactly. It was just everybody was at different places. Everybody's situations was... You don't know what their quarantining situations was like, so it's quite difficult to bring people together. And plus, no one would be able to see it as well.
And what effect do you think the pandemic's had on, like, particularly DIY art shows like this one?
I think it has a lot of pros and cons. I think that most people are moving towards more digital-based art. I mean, it's made me consider digital-based art, not NFTs per se, but like utilizing videos or films to make work in that sense. But I think it might have sped up the process of like things like, I'm not saying painting or craft making is going to become obsolete. Maybe it shifted that sort of transition from kids actually immateriality and moving into the digital realm.
Yeah.
More quicker.
Which would have happened anyway. But
I think the virus kind of like
propelled that.
Yeah, acted as a massive catalyst for sure.
But what about the effect of like the actual doing shows, as in the bringing of people together? Because the virtual shows have not really, they didn't really get going in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The need was still, with all of the cancelled shows that went online, everyone was gutted. There wasn't, oh great, we're going to do it online. There is still a need to come together in a physical space and show your work physically. No matter if it is there's a few digital artists on this, but they still would probably rather show it in a room than in a computer.
Yeah.
Have you felt like the community get dispersed through that, or is everything the same? Like organising the shows on either side of this, how that's the
how's
difference?
It felt? I think what I've realised is that there's a massive need, regardless of the mediums. People, like as I said earlier, people are shifting into more digital mediums. But at the same time, I think people, at the bottom line is people want to come commune together and see the shows together and meet other people. I think it's a place to celebrate some people come there because it's a party or like coming together to see their friends. Some people, I think it's just it's a way of coming together to meet people and talk about like-minded things, or to celebrate their friends or the artists they might like, or or to discover new insights as to what people have been doing for the past 6-7 months, or twining away in behind the screens. But regardless if there's an increase in digital art, I think there's still a massive need of people coming together to see a show. I don't think that's going to go anywhere very soon. Personally, I don't think so, because like seeing a show online by yourself is just the most disheartening thing going. It's so shit. It's like, oh yeah, I'm on Freeze online. Oh yeah, making my way through this virtual world where somebody has built a digital gallery space of a painting in a vault somewhere. It's just like, what? No.
Yeah.
This doesn't have the same impact. And some things you just have to see in person. It just doesn't work.
So you wouldn't have done a fridge online?
No. I mean, it would have to be strictly digital work. And it would have to work. If I were to do that, all the work would have on there must be digital and have some sort of must work within those parameters of existing in the digital realm. I wouldn't have like a painting online. I just think it's stupid. It's like, what the fuck? No, there's no point. I don't think there's any point to it.
And I think your work has changed since doing Fridge.
Massively.
Because your work has changed. Is doing Fridge almost part of your practice?
I mean, I think it informs me unconsciously, because it helps me have conversations with people about their work.
Particularly as you weren't at art school. You weren't in any formal art school when you started Fridge.
No, not at all. No, I wasn't at all in any other art school. And is it part of my practice? I guess I'll say yes, it is part of my practice, because I think it's important to not just understand and not understand to understand deeply about my own practice, but also understand like what my peers are doing within the context, within the world we live in, because it helps you your practice grow, because you're like, oh, this person's looking into this niche subject and how does that impact and the ways of seeing, and it also gives you an insight to like where they're from, who they are, and how they've been socialized. I mean, that's the most important thing about art, because it gives you an insight to how people are actually thinking and how they've been socialized, and their relationship and their awareness of how they've been socialized in relation to their work. And I think, I don't know, it's just a great insight into people, and it helps me reflect on my work in a way, just seeing other people do their work as well. I'm not able to give like concrete examples. It's quite difficult.
Because you don't have a formal art background.
No, I don't at all.
You did fashion, isn't it?
I did fashion, indeed. But at the same time, I think there's it's a bit of a crossover, but it's a more slower pace, because fashion was not so. Fashion is very quick and speedy. But I mean, in fashion, you do learn a lot about people and stuff, and what triggers them in terms of like, marketing, advertising, and trying to sell products, and pushing up people's like dopamine levels and serotonin. It's like, oh, buy this because it's going to make you feel sexy, blah 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 blah. So you really know what makes people tick in terms of like, how to grab their attention in that way. But at the same time, art kind of does that, but it's just understanding how to. I think art is there to just slow you down, and so like, do you really need this thing? Re-examine this thing you're about to buy or put in your pocket. Think about where this thing's coming from. I think that's what great art should do in a way. It should.
But then the Fridge isn't about selling, really.
No, it's not about selling at all. It's about.
It's one night. It's never been set up for the buyer.
No, not at all.
It's more just an art party.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of thing.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about expanding that and actually making it more of a party, or do you think that it would not work like that? Because you can't really mix the two to some extent.
Then it becomes very, very dangerous if I turn it into like an art party. But I know exactly what you mean.
Like, not pretend there is no pandemic and you can...
Yeah, I do know what you mean. But there's nothing wrong with having a party as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just giving people time to see the work and digest it, and it possibly turning into a party.
But then there's party art, and then there's art for the...
I see what you mean. Know what I mean. Yeah, I see what you mean.
As in, you have to... For a party, it's usually good to turn the lights off, and for art, it's usually good to turn the lights on in some ways.
Yeah.
But there are types of art that would suit the darkness of a party environment.
I see what you mean.
And almost, because your thing is almost just bringing people together for this one night, it is almost like a party. Could be an interesting...
In a way, yeah, I guess so. I mean, the aim is not to have a one night thing. That's my aim anyway. But at the same time, yeah, I guess it is a party. Right now, it feels like a one night bonanza.
Do you think there's more space now that the pandemic's happened? Or
more physical space?
More space about, free space?
I think so, for sure. Especially like in central London, because I don't know, I think there's loads of free space. You just have to keep knocking on people's doors till you find who has the keys to these places. Because I think like places like, there's a lot of places which are fairly abandoned, like in Fistrovia, Pimlico, and parts of West London, because most of the tourism comes to East London and South, because everybody wants to be in Shoreditch right now, and no one wants anybody with any money coming from abroad or internationally don't buy places in West London anymore. They're all coming to East because it's where. So my opinion is, I think everything's going to be like Central West. There might not be cheaper, but there might be possibilities of like empty spaces, and just have to go knocking on doors like, hey, you've got free spot, let me use it.
And how important was Hackney Wick in turning into an art practice, like the creation of your art practice?
I think Hackney Wick has been a huge like...
Because when did you decide to actually stop doing fashion and focus on being an artist?
I decided to stop around 2018, maybe, about early 2018 to 2017-ish.
Yeah.
Plainly because multiple people in the past, like I was meant to do an MA, and the lady who interviewed me with the MA was just like, look, I'll give you a place in the course, but I think you'd be more suited for something a bit more pensive, because she just felt my subject matters and things I was interested in was more geared towards like
you weren't going to be an
artist and not
designer for Uniqlo or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she just knew I wasn't gonna cope in the fashion world, or I would not have.
You wouldn't make it.
Yeah, exactly. She was just like, you should do something more artistic.
Or you'd be unhappy.
Yeah, I would be very unhappy, and she was just worried about that. And then many years later, moving into Hackney Wick and living at Uni 18, and it was just such a great space because there's no so much pressure on time. I'm not saying people are not conscious of don't have responsibilities and stuff, but those responsibilities on a different level, but more so to do with like their mental psyche and their engagement with themselves, and just having the freedom and being exposed to things like Sunday service as well, and like living in Unit 18 with everybody, like all the great housemates. You just felt like you could talk about anything, nothing was off the cards, trying anything everything was on, you can try whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, living in Hackney Wick, especially in Blackgate, was like a catalyst to my artist development for sure.
And
like massively.
With Hackney Wick, because Hackney Wick is basically it's over now, isn't it, really?
Long gone.
No, it's not long gone because it's still here, and there are people still here, but the writing's not just on the wall, it's on a new wall that's been built 100 times over your head. But I think these spaces like Vicious Collective, like fridge community are going to be these sort of road maps that lead out of here and keep people together and keep a sense of community or connection, whether community is the right word, but like network, like what we have as a DIY art system.
Yeah.
Because perhaps next year there will be no more artists in Hackney Wick. Probably.
Probably.
And so having these things, I think, is really great for, you know, for this to not just end when the eviction notice comes through.
Yeah.
Because it's something long lasting, perhaps, or something that can exist without the need for the physical.
Yeah.
Because it's just people.
Absolutely, it's just people at the end of the day, and that's all it comes down to be honest. And yeah, I mean that's the thing. I do think about the future of like where things are going to be, but it's just being attentive to like what's going on and what opportunities are out there, and just making sure, as you said, just keeping that contact with people who want to share their work without having any sort of like, who just want other people to commune with their work and not having some sort of like monetary pressures of like, oh, you have to sell this. I just want people who care about what they're doing. That's pretty much what I care about, to be honest.
Is there a final statement you'd like to make before the fridge opens to the public?
I don't know. Get your ass down to fridge. I don't know. Oh god.
Get in the fucking fridge!
Yeah. Something like that, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would do it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was half an hour.
Bloody hell.
Well done, Jam.
My god.